Alright, I'll be blunt and say that one of my favorite movies of all time, and animated or otherwise, it might sound kind of weird, but it's James and the Giant Peach, a stop-motion, live-action hybrid film released in 1996, directed by stop-motion master filmmaker Henry Selick, who you probably know for directing The Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline. And this thing too. But while most of you have probably seen the praises of Nightmare and Coraline, you almost be hard-pressed to find anybody that really talks about this film, nor is it really discussed on its own regarding Henry Selick films or even just animated Disney films in general, especially the ones that aren't really in the main canon but could still fit in hypothetically, but not really. And it's kind of a shame too, because despite bombing at the box office, this film was actually received pretty well by critics and even got a lot of award recognition, especially at the Annies, where it garnered tons of award nominations, Academy Award recognition for Randy Newman's score, and it even won for Best Animated Feature at the Annecy International Film Festival, which is kind of a big deal at that time, especially when this thing was also released. But for the video today, I'm not really gonna look into why it isn't talked about, because the last time I did that, it led to this. So I'll just kind of keep it as simple as, say, my Donkey Kong video and just kind of look into just why I like it so much and just how strange it is and why I think it works in the benefit of the film itself, despite how many detractors it has because of how weird it is and the creep factor, which, I mean, come on guys, are you kidding me? Anyway, enough stalling, let's just get into it. To begin, I'm gonna take my time to go over the entire story of this movie and tell me if this sounds in any way normal. James is a little boy who grew up on a lighthouse shore with his parents. I don't know if they actually lived in the lighthouse or not, but the three make plans to visit New York City, but before they can go,
an angry rhinoceros appeared out of nowhere and gobbled up his poor mother and father.
Now in the care of his abusive aunts, Spiker and Sponge, he lives in intense woe and does their biddings. He then finds some weird green things from some magic man. I don't know if he's like a wizard or a fairy godfather. I don't know. He ends up losing the green things and they make a peach that grows into a giant-sized fruit. Don't worry kids, it's not fruitful body horror like the other story. It's just a plain old peach. It also mutates some local bugs. We get a kind ladybug, some snobbish grasshopper, a smoking centipede with a Brooklyn accent voiced by Richard Dreyfuss. Yes, really. A worrywart earthworm, a very aesthetically pleasing spider, and a senile glowworm. And one night, James stumbles into the peach, turns into a stop-motion puppet, and ends up on an adventure with these bozos. They terrorize a local town, encounter a robot shark that makes these fish head things that we see earlier in the movie, tie a bunch of seagulls to the peach to make it fly, fight for food only to realize how stupid they are and could just eat the peach. Then they sing about it. Fight skeleton pirates led by Jack Skellington and Donald Duck. Yeah, really. Have a cosmic musical number with random flying objects and cloud creatures running about. Get attacked by a cloud rhino that resembles the one that killed James's parents. Land in New York City and officially put Spiker and Sponge in their place. And the bugs become local celebrities and solve world problems. Whoop-de-doo. Totally a normal movie-going experience, am I right? Jokes aside though, this is definitely one of the strangest movies that come from the Disney library, and that's what makes it so freaking fun. I mean, it doesn't have to be this big, grand epic like Night Before Christmas was, blending in with the Renaissance films. This kind of more or less does its own thing, while also kind of in a way paying homage to some of the older Disney animated films, particularly 1940s Pinocchio, with its somewhat episodic structure, with subtle character growth and interactions throughout, with a very satisfying ending with the hero's journey. This in turn helps make the film stand out in comparison to the other Disney animated films at this time, similar in effect to how Toy Story was able to stand on its own by being a buddy comedy film, while also still having a ton of heart and a satisfying conclusion for the hero's journey. And furthermore, James is able to stand tall on its own thanks to its source material and overall tone. So for those 5 that don't know, this was based on a children's book by author Roald Dahl, best known for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Twits, The Witches, and all kinds of other stories, including some really fucked up adult works. Read them, please. They will scar you for life. And if you do know those pre-mentioned stories, oh yeah, this definitely has that macabre edge that you all know from Roald Dahl, although maybe not quite as excessive in the film because, well, it does make some changes to the source material, mainly having Spiker and Sponge being spared for the ending despite having been killed off in the book, which was likely done for story reasons so that there could actually be some tension in the climax rather than just, hey, we're in New York, and also kind of dialing back on some of the more fucked up elements of the story, but let's not get into those. But it largely remains in spirit to the kind of whimsical yet really macabre tone that Roald Dahl usually goes for with his stories. There's a sense of wonder, but there's also that feeling of dread throughout, knowing that there's a good chance that you're probably going to be on the verge of death or encountering all these scenarios that really just test your dark humor or just overall sensitivity towards this kind of subject matter. Mostly with the action sequences in particular, the standouts definitely being the mechanical shark and the skeleton pirates, which, while they can be seen as pretty goofy in presentation, the designs of the characters and the environments around them still kind of have that sort of grungy vibe, which is further intensified by the dreamlike color palette and visuals of these scenes. Look into the mouth of that shark, for instance. All those mechanical teeth just going down and down and down. You just look into that. Still stuck in my head to this day. I wonder how deep it goes. Don't take that out of context, please. Or how about the color palette of the underwater? It's all a bright bioluminescent blue, even though there's no bioluminescent life, but hey, it still adds to the eeriness of the whole thing and still makes it a lot of fun to look at, and I've imitated this color palette in some of my own stuff too. This definitely helps give it that extreme, unnerving, dreamlike quality that I feel like is something that truly makes a movie a movie. And it's kind of a lost art that I've only really seen done from artsy filmmakers like Ari Aster or Robert Eggers. Oh, you don't know who they are? Well, go watch The Northman, okay? And to be honest, Randy Newman's score definitely complements this entire unnerving, dreamlike vibe. You remember how inspiring and uplifting his score was in Toy Story? Well, imagine taking that and putting it over footage of Final Destination 3. Okay, maybe it's not that extreme, but I truly believe it's this combination that really helps solidify why exactly this film resonates with me and why it's personally my go-to Henry Selick film compared to something like Coraline. Okay, maybe the film isn't as thought-provoking as those other two. Doesn't really have any of that amount of intense complexity that really makes you think about your own life and all your surroundings and analyzing all the little itty-bitty details. It's just kind of a straightforward, fun, goofy, sort of nonsensical fairy tale structure that, honestly, I think fits really well with the Disney mentality, despite the rather macabre undertones. I don't see why that's a big problem, especially given that this is from the same people that already brought us Nightmare Before Christmas. It's almost like it just kind of carried over just with a much lighter aesthetic, and honestly makes things more subtly dark, or more of that sense of dread really just comes from the idea of it all rather than just being upfront with the creepy visuals. And honestly, I think this worked favor not just for the film, but also Henry Selick himself. He didn't get immediately typecast as the director who made all the dark, creepy, stop-motion animated films. I mean, sure, there were some macabre elements to it, but it wasn't like the most obscene thing ever, or had a lot of the intense visuals that Nightmare Before Christmas was claimed to have had. I mean, honestly, the soccer moms were being a little ridiculous with that film. And keep in mind, too, Selick was still working with Tim Burton on this movie, so the fact that they went for something different, like, just up front, is really impressive. And I do kind of wish that Selick did kind of go for more of this vibe in some of his other movies, or at least a blend of his techniques of creepiness with fun vibes. I definitely hope that Wendell and Wild definitely has this balance. And hey, anything will be better than Monkey Bone, that's for damn sure. So yeah, even though it may not be one of the most talked about Disney animated films, nor one of the most talked about in Henry Selick's lineup, I still think you should give this a watch. Now, I don't think it's gonna end up getting that intense cult status and new wave of merchandise like, say, Corpse Bride, which I'm kind of surprised is actually having a lot of new merchandise now at Spirit Halloween. But hey, you know, I could still hold hopes of a Miss Spider pin someday. Yeah. I mean, that's just a something I really want to see at some point, because, hey, I like pins, and I like merchandise with my favorite animated characters on them. The movie needs some love as well. So, cool. At least a board game or a new jigsaw puzzle or something. That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it? It's also funny. Chris Sarandon was Jack Skellington in Nightmare Before Christmas, and his ex-wife, Susan Sarandon, was in this film voicing Miss Spider. Just kind of a funny connection right there, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, look, the video's... Oh, I think the video's done now. Okay, well, alright, I guess we'll see you all later.